All right, I'm going to give it a second more before I get started on this because I've had to change the address, and then we'll see what happens on it. So I'm assuming this is all working correctly now. The camera is moving around on me, so I'm going to go with that. Now, I was hoping I'd be able to share the screen with you, but I do not see a way to do that right off in here. So I'm going to have to point y'all to the screen that I'm going to be talking about. But first, let me look back in, and I want to make a comment or two on information that has just come out. Okay, I want to make sure I had that straight. Now, note from the president today, the campuses are all closed now through April the 6th. They do have wireless at the Kimball campus that you can pull up into the parking lot and receive. Their request is you stay in the car while using it, and they also make you aware of several other places. And a note from the president. I don't know if that's been forwarded to all of you, so I'll post it in the news in the class when I get through with this. Likewise, I will post a thing about online tutoring in there also. But we will have the session tonight. I plan to have one next Tuesday evening at the same time to go over the materials. Now, emphasis in the course is changing. I've discovered during the times y'all were out that they want me to be teaching a computer literacy major component to y'all also in here, which I was not aware of. So we will begin that tonight, and that's what we're going to continue on through the rest of the semester basically doing. So that we're going to do internet and email tonight, and you've got an assignment to do off of that called, actually two assignments called assignment 1 and assignment 2. Those are in assignments out there. They're in Word documents for you to see, and one of them is going out and finding some things on the internet and printing some screens and putting into a document. And the other one is on a similar approach, but I can't remember exactly what it did. So they want me to cover what the internet is with you. So I am going to go ahead and do that at this point. And where I'm going through is there is a PowerPoint out there. If you look in content for the course, there's a folder there called Internet and Email. There's two things in that folder that you need to pay. Well, actually, I think there's three things in that folder you need to pay attention to tonight. Let me double check back to that folder. So if you look in course content, and you look down in the contents on the left, you'll see an internet and email folder. If you click on that one, within it has a PowerPoint presentation about the internet, which is what I'm going to talk through in just a second. And then it has a email basics link that's being taught by some other location that is a readable thing that tells you about how to do email and such. And I'm going to talk my way through it right after I do the one on the internet. So I'm going to first start with the internet. So if you want to follow along with me, just go over there to course content in the course, and then look down and you'll find there's an internet and email folder listed down there. You'll see there's PowerPoints. That's actually all of the PowerPoints that went with your book. We're basically not going to be using the book from here on out other than for the final exam. And then there's a week 1 folder, and then there's an internet and email folder. The week 1 said we should go over the syllabus and those type things, which we did in week 1. So if you go to that internet and email folder, there you'll find the PowerPoint that I'm going to be talking from, but I do not see right now in here in YouTube a way to share my screen. I thought I knew how that. I thought I saw there was a way to do that earlier, but I don't see it right now. So since I can't see it, I won't be sharing the screen. You'll just continue seeing my face on it. Hopefully by next week I can figure that one out a little better, but we're going to go with that. So if you do want to follow along, just go there. All right, Walter, I've got to see that you are here. And I'm going to try to note down that you were. So far, you're the only one here. Are you hearing me okay, Walter? Good. Okay. Just wanting to make sure, because otherwise I don't want to just be talking to myself sitting here. I am coming from my house, so you see some of my collection of books in the background behind my head. So now let's talk about the internet. And like I say, I'm going to walk through that PowerPoint. You really don't need to see it. I'm just going to talk you through on what the major points are on it and tell you those things. And this basically is a computer literacy class PowerPoint. So we'll go with this. So the first thing they tell you about is they're going to tell you about what's the internet, what's the web, how's the internet work, types of internet service, and hardware needed. So their definition of the internet is it's a global network of billions of computers and other electronic devices. That number's kept on getting bigger, so that you can communicate with anyone else in the world and do a whole lot more stuff. The internet does date from 1969, when it was invented by the U.S. military and some colleges and a business or two, but primarily by the U.S. military through their DARPA office, the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency. At that time, it was just you had to know IP addresses to get to anything, and it was all text-based. And I actually did use it back in the 70s and 80s that way and got into libraries, because libraries did put stuff out there on it. But nothing was friendly like it is today. The World Wide Web dates from 1993. As they're putting it as what is the web, that it's the World Wide Web. That's where the www comes from on a lot of your addresses, because we named the servers that are serving the web pages up as the www server. Doesn't have to be. So if you notice, sometimes you have web pages that start with something different than www. It's a variety of websites, and what the World Wide Web really is that it gave the ability for you to link from page to page, and also to use the DNS, the domain name system, which came along right before that, and use domain names instead of IP addresses, and for things to be put out there more than just purely in a text format. So it can be all types of formats out there, lots of video, lots of pages with graphics on them, etc. And that dates from, like I say, 1993 was when Berners-Lee invented it, in Sweden, if I'm remembering right. And so that's where that comes along. I've just given you a lot more information than they give you. And to be able to look at it, you use a web browser. The big one initially was Netscape. Then Internet Explorer came along, bumped it off, and then that got bumped off by Chrome, and Actually, Netscape has progressed. It's no longer, it was owned by the University of Chicago. It's now a nonprofit owns and operates it, and that's Firefox. Um, so it continues to change. Internet Explorer has finally reached the end of its life and is going to be disappearing. Edge was intended to replace it originally back a number of years ago, probably about 5 years ago now. Never did catch on because Microsoft did their completely own browser. Now they have redone Edge, released in January. The E looks different. It looks like an ocean wave now if you see the new one. And it's based on the same engine as Chrome and Firefox, a Chromium engine. And should work more like Chrome. I've tried it a time or two. I've got it on my machine, but I have not really used it. But it looked okay from what I saw of it so far. Their definition of how the internet works is that it's a global network of physical cables which can include copper telephone cables, TV cables, and fiber optic cables. Actually, it includes wireless too. They go that the wireless depends on the physical cables, which is true, but you can have a network that does not depend at all on any physical cables. But to get through to the internet and everything through the whole thing, you are going to still be using a lot of physical cables. We are moving to fiber for that and away from copper, but copper will be around for a long time still for a lot of things. Fiber will be here and wireless will be here. The server is just the device that contains the stuff you're trying to get it on it. So just be aware of that one. So all your web pages are sitting out there on servers, but your client machines can be servers. And I think I told you all that earlier in class. Then they go through and tell you things you could do on the internet. Hopefully all of you already know all of these things. Probably all of you have done just about every one of these. Things they tell you can do on the internet. You can email, besides going and looking at web pages. That one they already told you about. They tell you can do email. Well, hopefully you all know how to do that. Social media, I'm quite confident that y'all know how to use Facebook at a minimum, Twitter, Instagram, and all of the others out there. But Twitter and Facebook being the big ones at this time. MySpace used to be the biggest one out there, but Facebook bumped it off. Shopping, that you can go and buy stuff on the internet, and that's being done more right now while we're having people we're having to keep social distance and trying to avoid people and everything. Managing your bank account, y'all may not have done that one much, and I really don't do that out there on the internet either. I do pay some bills, and I'm paying more bills now than I used to, but y'all may not have any real bank accounts to keep up with to manage. But you can do that out there. There are people that do that chronically out there. I know people that check every one of their bank accounts every day religiously on the internet. You can watch TV on the internet, and a number of y'all, I'm sure, are already doing that. Probably about half of what little TV I watch, I've done through the internet, because I wasn't at my apartment and I wanted to watch something that Comcast had, but where I was didn't have, so I could use my Comcast connection to watch it. Learning, you can do that on the internet. Bet y'all didn't know that, considering you're taking a course that's a hybrid course and been using the internet to do a lot of your work in it. And now we've moved fully online for probably the rest of the semester. I think from what the president said, we are online for the rest of the semester, but I'm not sure on that one, but we may be. I have a feeling we probably are. Types of internet service. Their screen is a little bit out of date, because it doesn't mention anything about 5G on here. It mentions 3G and 4G, but not 5G, which is out there now. They mentioned first that there's dial-up, which is what was the traditional original way of getting on. It is still used, and in the area where we live, there in Southeast Tennessee, Northwest Georgia, there are plenty of places around up there that you cannot use any of the following to get to the internet. So you may be able to use the cell phone service with the 3G, 4G, 5G, but even at that, there's areas you can't use that. So some people do have to still use dial-up in our area. So dial-up is still used out there. AOL is actually making a good bit of money on dial-up still. DSL, which is where it was that the telephone companies upgraded their equipment and their cabling and everything, and were able to send both a digital signal through at the same time as an analog signal, and to be able to send digital signals. Where on dial-up, it is being sent as an analog signal. Speeded things up, and was a big improvement there, and there are people still on DSL. Cable is used a lot by a lot of people. It is broadband, because it's more than 25 meg speed. I'm pretty sure 25 is the definition now. The federal government, the FCC, sets the definition of what is considered broadband. Cable is using your cable TV line, and it's sending it through there. Most of the time now it's moved to where it is fiber to the pole. So you've watched them laying the fiber everywhere down the streets as they went to fiber. Telephone service with the DSL has done the same thing to a degree, and you can actually do your telephone on the cable also. Then there's satellite connection. There are some people in our area that use that, and I know there's people all over the country that use it still some. Direct TV and whoever their other provider is, whoever the other big provider on that one is, still do provide that. Hughes TV, I know, does it. And that is one, again, is better than dial up, but some people may not be able to get cable, may not be able to DSL, and so it's either dial up or satellite. But then satellite won't work in some areas around us because of where the mountain is in position to where you are, that you can't catch the satellite from your location. So satellite's not used a whole lot. And basically it still uses the phone lines in most cases. You're using the satellite to download with, and you're using a telephone line to upload with. And then 3G and 4G, and now 5G, are all going to work off of your cell phone and using your cellular service for delivering internet service. Let me flip back over real quick to make sure there's been no comments or questions posted in the meantime. There hasn't, so I'll keep on going. Hardware needed. They note that they split it into 3 categories. They say that you need a modem, that you need a router, and that some routers are wireless, so you can create a home wireless network. Now, modem. Technically, a modem is only needed if you're doing satellite or dial-up, because the modem converted the digital signal to analog and then converted the analog signal to digital. The computer uses a digital signal. The telephone network actually uses a analog signal, but if you're using DSL, it's using a digital signal across the telephone network. So actually, after that, we're really not using a modem, although we claim they advertise it as, because everybody's used to, after all of the years we did that the device that connects your connection from home to the internet, everybody learned to be a modem. So now everybody refers to a DSL modem or a cable modem, or a satellite adapter sitting in there. And satellite only lets you connect one computer to that connection, and that the other computers have to connect through to that one computer. as opposed to on the others, you get to connect all your different devices right to the box right there. Now, that box is actually in all of these new ones, the DSL modem and the cable modem. It is actually a router, which is connecting your ISP's network to the network that you have in your house or office or wherever you're using it at. So we're now using routers actually there, but people are used to them being something called a modem, although technically they're not a modem anymore. They're really routers. And then routers can be wired and they can be wireless. And if you've got a newer cable modem, odds are it includes wireless built into it. Or if you don't and you want wireless, you have to go out and get yourself a wireless modem to connect to the cable modem to then broadcast out your signals within your house or your small business. Web browsers, they mentioned that's the software to use to find stuff on the internet. The most commonly used ones out there, they give you a list of that Chrome's there, Internet Explorer, Safari, Mozilla Firefox. Actually, Edge has bumped Internet Explorer now, and bumped Safari, I think, off too. Safari used to be available, it was developed by Apple, and now is only available on Apple devices. For a while, they did have it on Windows devices, but they quit supporting that. Firefox is an open source one done by the people that originally did Netscape, and then Chrome is done by Google. And those are your big ones, but there's lots of others out there also. URLs, that's the address you type in at the top in the address bar that you want to go to and find. That's what you see advertised on the billboards, on the trucks, that you tell people is your URL. So the URL from my webpage is www.dwightwatt.com. Dwight Watt is my domain, and then I've purchased a .com type, which is supposed to be a commercial type, but that includes, it's a catch-all nowadays. Originally, .com was supposed to be commercial. .net was networking organizations, and .org was nonprofits, but there was no controls on it, and it's become a free-for-all on that. .gov is still government. It is only issued by governments to governments, so that one is still, if you see a .gov, it really is government. Likewise, .edu, they've kept tight restrictions on it. Nowadays, you have to be in an accredited education institution to get a .edu. There are a few out there that may not be accredited institutions that have got their names back before that requirement was thrown in there, and they're grandfathered in. And then there's a ton more of last names you can have. Navigation buttons. Hopefully by now you have already figured out in your browser that you have backward and back and forward buttons that you can click and go back to previous pages, and if you've gone backwards, go forwards. And then there's a refresh button, which sort of looks like a circle on most of them, not completely a complete circle with an arrow trying to go around in the circle. It's refresh on some browsers, it's reload on other browsers. I believe Chrome calls it reload, if I remember right, and refresh is the other companies. That you can do that one, and it'll go out and get the page again for you and give you a fresh edition of it. They mention if the site stops working, you can try that to bring it back up. Another one is if you're watching a news site or something, you may want to refresh occasionally to get the latest information. Or if you're watching some sports site, that sometimes they don't change automatically, continuously. And if you want to now catch up to see what's gone on changed, use that refresh button. And then they mention about there's tabs up there on your page, and that you can use those tabs. That it mentions if you right click a link, it'll open the tab link, and then choose open the link in a new tab. It'll open in a separate tab and not wipe out whatever you were working on in the other tab. So you can have multiple ones. There's an X there to close them, so you can close different ones. There's also a button on the right that you can click to open blank new tabs. Now, depending on how your browser is set up, it may come up blank or it may come up with your default home page there. So that will vary on your settings. Bookmarks, you can set bookmarks of, which are also called favorites in some browsers. You can set them so that you can go back to a page that you've been to before without having to try to remember what was the link to that whole page. Because the other part is on the links and the URLs. I mentioned just the basic one of www.dwightwhite.com. That takes you to the main page or the index page, as you'll see it referred often. If you want to go to a specific page within that site, then you use a / and you tell it the names of the folders, subfolders, and then the name of the specific page you're wanting to go to. But if it's not told what page to go to, it goes to either a web page named index.htm or index.html or default.htm/html, one of the two of those. Nowadays, index tends to be the name used originally, and I believe Netscape was the one that did it originally. Doing this on it was that they used default, and then it's changed over to. So you can create bookmarks at any time by just clicking over on the right side and telling it to add a bookmark. And then the last thing they mention is that when there's files listed on the page or there's pictures shown, you can actually right click them and tell it to save them, and you can save the file to your desktop, or you can actually save the images to your desktop. So that's the overview of internet that they have for you. Let me see if there's any questions from anybody at this point. I do say that we've got one other person joined us. That Hunter, you joined us at some point in here. Have either of you got any questions on the internet? Now, make sure you're both aware that there is an assignment to do this week on this. Actually, 2 assignments. They're called Assignment 1 and Assignment 2. They are in assignments, and those you'll need to do. In addition, your Chapter 5, Chapter 6 test from the book, I posted it today, and it is due next Tuesday also. So and it'll be 25 multiple choice questions, just like we did on the other 2 tests. So, and that's there at where they've been before. Practice tests have been out there for a couple of weeks now, since y'all had break the other week, which was when I was in North Carolina, and actually did go to the conferences there, which were good, except for I got clobbered by sinuses on the way up there. That's when my car started turning yellow. And when that happens every year, I get a bad sinus attack. So I got sick while I was there, but I did manage to make it to the stuff. I did get certified by TOSA in Word 2016 during the week. I took a CEH, computer forensics exam, failed it, but I had no idea what was on it. I made like 565 and passing is 700, so that's not bad. Biggest things it kept asking on was the order and handle of how you handle evidence and getting people, when people have to sign for it, and how all the handling of forensic evidence is done. Wasn't a bad test. If I'd known exactly what was on it and could have studied for it, would have helped. But I really wouldn't have been able to stay for it that week because most of the nights I was going back to the motel room and collapsing. Although I did go out to eat with some people 1 or 2 nights. Since I've been back, the first few days I was slowed down drastically by that, and I am walking 2 miles a day now, so I'm getting back up to my 6,000 steps a day and doing much better on that. And I haven't been around people. I've just been around my wife in this whole last week and a half. I've not been around anyone else. Well, actually, I saw my neighbor in the yard, but we were at a safe social distance. I don't think we got any closer than 10 feet together, when I spoke to her out there in the yard. Because I've worked on church services last Saturday most of the day. Um, they recorded one church that I do stuff with, recorded it on the DVD and goofed up something when they were finishing. And then they were going to play it on Sunday. They did that on Friday morning and it wouldn't work. And the DVD said there was nothing there. They passed it to me and I worked on it probably about 6.5 hours worth. Found a program that did get stuff off of it, was in a raw format, ISO Buster, which cost $40 for me to buy to use, but nothing else would show that there was anything on the DVD other than I knew there was something there because I could flip over the DVD, look at the back side of it, and you can actually see when something's been written there. You can see the burned area. So, and then I've been working on all of my different classes full time every day, more than full time into the evening and stuff, and also trying to do a little bit of listening to things for myself on here. But with this us closed in and everything else, I'm sort of, and them having shut down everything, there's not a lot for me to follow. But I've been emailing back and forth. I've responded to people in the class that have emailed me. Not sure if either one of you had emailed me, but I have responded to those that have emailed. So now let's do the other part that they want us to do, which is email basics. That one's in that same folder. This one's not a PowerPoint, but it's actually a little mini course that's done by some organization. I'll tell you who it is in just a second once I start it again. And it's called Email Basics here, and it's actually a link to the course there. So if you go to the internet and email, that you'll find it in there. Actually, it looks like it's in the internet folder within the internet and email. And this is done by GCF Global, which is supposed to be a Learn Free. They have an address called learnfree.org. So they go through, introduce you to email. This one, I'll warn you, is a little bit out of date. First thing is it tells you, do you feel like you're the only person who doesn't use email? Well, I suspect everyone in this class is using email. It should be, because that's the way you can get a hold of me and a lot of stuff with the school. So they tell you about emails, just a way to send messages across the internet. You already know all of that. They compare it to traditional mail, that you put addresses on there, except for the addresses are obviously email addresses in the form of something at, and then a name point and the extension. So like in my case, here at the college, Arthur.Watt at ChattanoogaState.edu, and that it gets delivered instantaneously or within a few minutes, because sometimes it can get slowed down depending on how the internet's being used. And I wouldn't be surprised that sometimes during these coming weeks, while we've got all of this work at home and everything else going on, there may be times things get slowed a little. They mentioned that it usually comes with some productivity tools in it. That's particularly talking when you're looking at Outlook, which is what the school provides to you. Google Mail gives you some things. Yahoo, or they've changed their name now to Connectivity or something. It's something weird. Let me see if I see that name back here, because that's where my email is. No, they don't really say on that. Okay, so I'll just keep on going. You can communicate with multiple people. You can send to multiple people at one time. Be careful when you respond to emails that were sent to multiple people. Don't do reply all unless you mean reply all. If you just mean reply to one person, just do reply, not reply all. Second thing is, if you're sending it out to more than, I'd say, 5 people, don't put all their names in to or CC. This is not covered in this little introduction they have. Put it in BCC. BCC is blind carbon copy. That's left over from typing days. CC the term is also for carbon copy. The idea with CC was that you sent a copy of whatever you were typing to people, but it wasn't the original. It was done with carbon paper. Now it's just that they got a copy, but the copy is identical to the original. Blind carbon copy, if you put the addresses in there, everybody that gets it will not see any addresses except for what you put in 2 and CC. Any addresses put in BCC are not there. Phishers love to get a hold of emails that have 20 or 100 addresses in the 2 or the CC because they know they got good addresses to start sending phishing emails to. So use the BCC when you're going to send to more than 5 people or so. Then they mention about how the address is set up. I think you know that one. The email provider is the website that hosts your account. And a lot of times that's not really where it's being hosted, like our school ones are being hosted by Microsoft, but your address shows as chattanoogastate.edu, and that actually Chattanooga State's just purchasing with Microsoft. And then they mentioned the providers, which I already did. Email applications, they mentioned like Outlook includes a number of different things with it, and you actually get a free copy of Office there at Chattanooga State, I believe, with your Outlook. There's Teams listed out there also, and the school wants you to be using that some for communicating right now during this. And I'll set up a Teams account for our class that you can put stuff into there, but I'm going to warn you, I'm not going to be watching it as closely as I'll watch email. I'll try to get in there regularly. I'll also give you the Teams link to go to the online tutoring that the school is offering, and they're doing that through Teams. And I'll post those, I hope, later this evening. You've got address books where you can keep all your addresses, and that is real helpful. They include usually a calendar out there where you can keep a lot of stuff on the calendar and know on that and have it actually beep and tell you when you got things coming up. But a lot of them, you do get other things like Microsoft will definitely give you the web apps with theirs, but I think you get the full Office with yours as part of theirs. Google includes Google Docs with it and Google Drive. You're limited on the space on Google Drive initially to, I think it's 2 gig if I remember right, but then they will increase that with your usage of it. And you can buy more space if you want. And if you want to set up an email account with whoever, you can just go to their site and they'll let you set up an email account. So if you want a Yahoo one, you can go to Yahoo, or Outlook is what Microsoft currently uses their name as, although they've had theirs as other names out there before. And you could go to Gmail and get a Gmail account also. All right, let me go to the next part on it. And I probably have already done this. The common features. It has an interface that will list that you've got it broken into a number of boxes and that you can look at your inbox. Those are the things that have come in. They're usually marked in bold if you've not read them. And if you have looked at them, they're no longer in bold. You can change to your outbox or sent and see things that you have sent. Outbox actually is where it goes to when you're typing it out, and go to send it. And once it gets sent, it moves from the outbox to the sent box. So if it hits a problem, you'll sit there and out. You've got a composed pane for you to compose your stuff in. You'll tell it where you're sending it to, and there's where I'm recommending to you. It's going to give you the 2 by default, and some of them will also give you by default the BCC and the CCC. Some of them you have to click a little button over on the side that says CC/BCC, and then it gives you the CC and BCC boxes. Then it's got a subject line box. Keep your subjects short because you want them to be visible in that box of where they're seeing their messages. Because most people do not have it previewing part of every message coming in because stuff gets buried that way. So keep it short and then write your little message too. whoever it is, and try to keep it in a really good professional approach on it. Terms, they mention a couple of things here. I've already mentioned to you about the CC and BCC. The subject line I've already mentioned, and then you'll have a send button. You also have some editing symbols. Usually, most of the time, you're sending these in HTML nowadays, so you can actually bold things. You can put images into your email, etc. So you can attach those and work with that and you can actually change the color of your font and so on in there. All right, let's see if there's anything else down here you need to see. Then they mention about contacts. You can save anything. When you get an email from somebody, you can click a save button to save that contact. It'll save their name and their address. Then you can just click on your list of contacts and choose that name. And most of them, you can actually just start typing the name and it will give you a list of the ones that are in your contacts, and you can choose it right from there. That's highly useful and a really good one. You can also add other information out there about your contacts, like phone numbers and their first, last name, their address, etc. Even a picture of them and so on. I keep it usually fairly simple. Now on my phone, obviously I've got phone numbers with them also in my list of contacts on it. And then it tells you can import contacts from other places. You can group them into groups. Haven't used that one a whole lot, although I do have one group when I send things out to the others that run the sound system at church with me, like when I'm going to tell them I'm not going to be there. I've put the 6 of those people into a group, and I just send it to that group I call Church Video, instead of me having to remember and click each person's name. Calendar, you can set up appointments, and you can edit those and do all types of things with them. You can actually share those calendars with other people if you want, and work with those. I'd be careful in getting too much into that. Etiquette is the next one. They mention a couple of things there. One, don't type your emails in all caps. They don't mention that, but I will mention that to you. That's shouting. They tell you that it's nice to add a greeting such as "Dear so-and-so" and "Thanks" and then your name. Well, most of us have our signature line already built in there, and so that puts our name on the bottom anyway. I'll put thanks on things if I'm thanking you for having done something or asking you to do something. I don't put "Dear so-and-so" on my emails. That just, you can do that if you like, but some people think that's a little bit over friendly. Be concise and clear on what you're saying, and give all the information they need, but keep it concise. Watch your tone. That's hard sometimes. And try to, that people sometimes are going to misread what you put anyway, and are going to read it differently than you did. But try to keep them into not being an aggressive tone, unless you really intend it to be aggressive. Sometimes you do. Just like when you're talking to somebody at the store. Sometimes you need to be a little bit more aggressive talking to them. Reply carefully. As I noted earlier, be particularly careful of the reply all. They give the example of somebody replying to everybody where they were just intending to reply to one person. And they send it to everybody, and we all get swamped with those where people are, something's been sent out to everybody and people are going, "Got it," or "Thanks for sending this to me," and sends it back to everybody in your mailbox. That I don't do it at some point, but let's try not to. Try to watch for spelling and grammatical errors. Most of them do spell check for you, but sometimes spelling errors do get through. If y'all have watched my emails and stuff I post in the class, it doesn't always, I don't always, even with spell checker being there on some of the stuff, I don't always notice the little red lines. Sometimes they're rather thin and hardly seen, but try to watch on that. But once it's sent, it's sent. Now, on Outlook, if you're using the real Outlook, not Outlook Web, which is what you're all using for school, You can actually recall messages, but if they've already opened it, it won't recall. So, yes, emails can be unsent, but it doesn't work real well. Be careful in terms of using colors because that can make it difficult for people to read and be an ADA violation. And that they note, don't put everything under the sun on your signature line. And then people like to put quotes down there and stuff. Don't get it all buried where people have no idea in the world how to get a hold of you. Put what your preference is down there. So, but you probably are going to need to put a couple of ways of contact on it anyway. They do have a warning about all caps. I didn't see it earlier. Okay. And then be careful of chain emails and not forwarding those on along the way. All right, let me scroll on down. Attachments. You can attach stuff, but try not to send too big of attachments, and some email systems will limit you on the size of attachments. Generally, also put it in the email that you are telling them what you are attaching. The other problem is attachments can get maliciously sent and have malware, etc., attached to them, or even be ways that set off ransomware, etc. So be careful on opening attachments that they really are what you think they are. And then, so they note include only ones. Business that they note, keep it professional in what you put in your emails and not put things there. Also, email is not encrypted unless you have an encrypted email system. So you don't want to generally include personal identifiable information in there, things like credit card numbers, passwords, social security number. The other one is when you get a request wanting that information sent from an email, more than likely that's a phisher. Don't do it. If it says it's from your bank and you think it is, still don't do it. Pick up the phone and call the bank and check to see. And not by the phone number that's sitting there in the email. Look it up. Or if it's about your credit card, look on the back of your credit card and call the phone number on your credit card. Spam, there's lots of that. Phishing, I've mentioned that already. That'll come out looking like it's come from all different types of sources. It's amazing how good they're getting on writing this stuff up nowadays. So that's that stuff. And then they tell you that you can select multiple emails at a time. For instance, when I go to delete them, I'll do that a lot of times. Now, on my professional email, my school email accounts, both at Chattanooga State and Georgia Northwestern, I do not delete emails. The schools claim they've got a backup on them, but I haven't really seen them. I used to see the one that GNTC had, but after they switched from that one, which was called Proofpoint, I'm not sure if they really are backed up. So I keep a folder up there that I call deleted intent, and that's where all of my deleted things that are going to be deleted go. Because they give me so much space. I get like a terabyte of space for emails at both places that I don't need to worry about running out of space. So I don't trash anything, essentially. So you could call me a pack rat if you want. There are shortcuts you can use using the keyboards. Main ones that I ever use on that is for copying and pasting. The Control C and the Control V, or off of those. Groups can be useful. You can filter your emails so that they go into certain categories or show as in categories, but I really haven't used that. Be careful what you put in your emails. Also, particularly your professional emails from on your job, you can get fired for what you put in your email. And then most places, but state agencies, federal agencies actually are required by law to keep all the old ones, but how well they're doing, I don't know. And if you remember, we had a presidential candidate 4 years ago that got in trouble about not keeping stuff where she should have been keeping stuff. So make sure you do follow the company email policy and that you don't put offensive language and inappropriate language in them and such. Keep it professional. Generally not discuss confidential information. And think before you send is probably a good indicator. The other ones, don't put anything in there that you wouldn't want your mom to see on the front page of the newspaper tomorrow morning. Be careful of spam and phishing. Spam is just where you get massive things trying to sell you things that really don't exist, etc. Phishing's where they're trying to get information from you so then they can get into your bank account or whatever. I realize in y'all's cases, and most of you right at this point, if they got in your bank account, they wouldn't get much. That they might get where they owe you some money. You can tell it not to show images or display images. You can play with all that. Whether you want it to preview the messages is another setting you can do in different ones, not in all. I generally stay away from the preview, and that's the big ones on that. And then they go about how formal should an email be. Generally, I would keep it it's going to be a little bit less formal, but it depends on what you're doing. If you're sending a thank you note for a job interview, keep it formal. If you're sending it, if this is an email for an application for a job, definitely keep it formal. If you know the person, you can get it a little bit more relaxed, just like if you were talking to them in the hall. So try to keep it like you would talk to them if you saw them in person. So they talk about that on there and give you some examples. Seems like there's more in here than there was when I did it earlier. And actually, that's it. So that's the big ones on that, because we actually went through all kinds of additional things here, because I just covered the whole little course for you. So then you can look through that. Remember, there are 2 assignments for this week, called Assignment 1 and Assignment 2. And that you've got the test on chapters 5 and 6 from the textbook to take this week also. The next week, we will be talking about Word. I believe that's what I don't think we go into Windows. I think we go straight into Word and have a week or 2 on Word, and then we have something stuff to do on Excel still in this course. I realize that's not program design and development, but that's what the college says is part of this course. So we'll be doing those for the next few weeks, and then we'll have a final that'll come back covering over the stuff that you did in the program design. Any questions for me? Hopefully y'all kept on being able to hear me. I'm seeing something there about unable to connect the chat. I'm not sure if that's me or not. So I'm just going to type hi in here real quick. And that seems to work. So I don't know what got in the way right there. So we had 2 of you. Hopefully some others can watch the recording of it later. So if there's not any other questions, I'm going to discontinue this. We've actually spent about an hour in here tonight, so it lasted a little longer than I thought it would. So I'm going to hit the end stream and tell you both have a good week. And anybody that listens to the recording, I hope y'all have good days and good weeks also, and keep in touch. I am trying to check email daily. I won't promise I get it every day, but I'm trying to check it every day. Talk to you later.